The man charged in the 2022 July 4th parade mass shooting in Highland Park is expected to represent himself at trial. 7 people were killed and dozens of more were injured when authorities say Robert E. Crimo III opened fire from a rooftop at the parade. Crimo has pleaded not guilty to more than 115 criminal charges. His trial is set to start this coming February. The judge in his case has been preparing attorneys for a February 2025 date before Crimo indicated he wanted a speedy trial in the middle of a hearing. Crimo told the judge he understood he will not have access to an attorney or assistance from the court during the trial.